Hello. I am Merlin, the Microsoft agent, and I will be your guide during this lesson.
Woo!
Hey. Do I know you? You look very familiar to me. I remember. You are the same one I was talking to 3 chapters before. Nice to see you again. Are you ready to start? In the previous chapter you saw me using some controls inside a dynamic page. In this chapter we will learn more about controls and how to use them. In the last demo, we saw how to work with Visual Web Developer Express Edition to create a dynamic web page. We will talk more about server controls in this chapter and how to work with them. As we saw in the previous chapters, a dynamic web page renders HTML to the end user after the web server processes all the code. In the process of building an ASPX page, we used controls to define the functionality of the page. Let me think in an example. I've got it. For example, the grid view control is used to display data from a database. And the calendar control allows the user to select dates. These kinds of controls are called server controls. There are many different types of server controls with different functionality, but there are a couple things they all have in common. First, you can configure them beforehand when you first create the page. That way, when it comes time for the server to process the page, T will know what it needs to do with the controls. For example, we can tell the grid view control to show data about types of dogs from certain database and show this information in groups of 3. We can do all this during creation of the page. This is the way we work with server controls. So when the page runs, the server will use this information to process the ASPX page. The second thing server controls have in common is that they become HTML when the page is returned back to the client. Here is the code for the control at development time in the ASPX page. And here you can see how the code for the control looks in the final page. You also see this by selecting View Source in a browser. As you can see, these server controls have turned into HTML. The grid view server control becomes a table tag. You can ignore the code with a light blue background. That is for paging the results. Take note. To summarize, a server control executes its program logic on the server and appears as HTML to the client. ASP.NET has many server controls, and you can find them listed in the toolbox in Visual Web Developer Express. Now let's move on to the demo. Now Petey is going to show you a couple of demos using server controls. Is Petey there? Hello? Okay, is here. I will cook my dinner. Is dinner time in here?
Not again! I am sorry, someone leave a cookie here, near the keyboard. Okay, welcome to the second demo of this course. In this demo, I will show you some server controls and explain how to use them. Here we have the same website I created for the last demo. Now let's add a new web form. You remember how to do that, eh? Okay, I will add a new web form. Okay, now we have a new page named Demo 2. First, let's add a few controls. I will add a calendar control, a button and a label. When the user picks a date and presses the button, the page will be processed by the web server, and the response will contain a label displaying the selected date. Is it clear? Change to Design View. Drag and drop the controls from the toolbox. Now let's add some code to be executed when the user clicks the button. Remember how to do that. Just double-click the button control, and we can start writing our code. Bravo! The code will be very similar to the last one. Let's type label 1. Intelligence is helping me. I choose text. Equals to. Quotation mark. You selected it. Quotation mark. And this time we want calendar 1. Select date. To string. It's just like the last example, except using the calendar control. Now let's see how it looks in Internet Explorer. Right-click on the page and select View in Browser. Ouch! I forget to save again. Okay, time to see the page on the browser. Again. Now let's pick a date and click the button. Great. Beautiful, isn't it? No. It needs more color. Now let's go back to the design view. Click the arrow on the calendar control and choose Auto Format to pick a nicer design. This is okay. I would also like to make a little change in the way the date is displayed. Going back to the code. I want to display a short version of the date. So let me change the string to short date string. Very logical, eh? Now let's save the page. View in browser. We get a message saying that ASP.NET will refresh the running page to get the new version. Click Accept. Here are our changes. Better, eh? I need another point of view. Better. I will show you another example which is a little more complicated and uses a data source to show information from a database. Another example which is a little more complicated and uses a data source to show information from a database. In order to follow along, you'll need to copy the database file's name .docsd from the resources folder to the application data folder in your application. Here it is. Now we can start the demo. Ready? Okay. Let's create a new page named Data. And switch to Design View. Yes. Okay.